Jasmine Crockett, in terms of her rhetoric, in terms of her fire, is one of the few Democrats in Congress that actually seems to get the moment that we're living in. And she demonstrated that recently on the.
Jasmine Crockett went inside the view set, looking forward to a light-hearted conversation about both athletes and activism. 10 minutes later, she uttered 15 sentences that caused the internet to go down and departed. The entire studio was in disbelief. Only one. The host questioned Coco Gauff's racial, athletics and philosophy, due to a major error. Crockett doesn't employ polite deflections. She drops truth bombs. Furthermore, this one actually exploded. Time spent on national television. Now leave a remark. Do you think athletes should keep their identities a secret? Liking sports, or is that just a way to amuse us and maintain our composure? Now let us determine the situation properly, since context is crucial. In this location, the vista is entirely American. Then the argument in the living room developed into a show on television. You've multiple hosts with really desperate perspectives, an audience ready to gasp or applaud at any time, and topic ranging from celebrity rumors to actual policy conversations. It is organized chaos during commercial breaks. As a result, when they invite a serving member of Congress who furthermore functions as a former civil rights attorney who is intolerant of stupidity, someone should have anticipated fireworks. But it appears the creators thought they were having a comfortable and safe conversation regarding the empowerment of women in sports. They thought it was wrong. The episode started as normal, which was enough. As soon as when Crockett arrived, she appeared polished and capable of using "I'm here" cream blazer. I'll do both in order to teach that instead of arguing if energy is necessary. The hosts executed their common early banter, discussed a few political updates and discussions, women's leadership, and then smoothly went into sports and culture. Everything was going according to plan. The standard view formula up to 1. The host decided to bring up Coco Gauff. Furthermore, don't just remark her, but inquire whether young athletes like. Instead, Coco was concentrating solely on identity of just playing the game. That phrase, merely participating in the things, shifted sideways in the game. As this is the problem with that certain sentence. The language is coded. It appears conceivable that such as, hey, can't we all just focus about the sport, but what it actually implies. Please don't keep reminding us in terms of race, since it makes us uncomfortable. Crockett heard exactly what the host was genuinely stating, and she would not tolerate it today. As a result, she took that action where she stops, takes a breath, and am able to view her brain, selecting between Texas and the civil congresswoman in a diplomatic manner. Rights attorney mode 1. Naturally, when Crockett bent over to give those 15 put otherwise, Coco's geniuses not political. America hates this mirror since it draws attention to its flaws. The entire ambience in there was a noticeable shift in that studio. Via the TV, Joy Bihar's expression shifted from casual to desire to state, "Oh, we're doing thing now." Whoopi Goldberg was correct. A way that a significant event had recently happened, and relaxed, knowing people's responses after realizing the audience is observing the past. I wasn't sure if I should applaud immediately or follow the process first. Consequently, this odd 3-second gap before the cheers started, and then it evolved into a standing ovation. However, Crockett wasn't finished, since making a perfect soundbite is one thing, but in practice, it's quite different to elucidate its significance. She continued to elucidate the reasons behind the uneasiness surrounding Coco's identity has nothing to do with. Instead, it's about America's inability to handle dark greatness that refuses to accept anything less for itself. Comfort. When Coco Gauff wins a game and shows appreciation to her community, when she expresses her pride when she was a younger black woman. For her country. She's not attempting toits political, living entirely as herself. It appears that this is still contested in 2025, which is entirely incredible when you think about it. The genius Crockett's response wasn't just that. The actual words, despite the fact that those where the delivery was perfect, wasn't angry or defensive. Realistic, like someone instructing basic maths to individuals who continue to be demanding that 2 plus 2 equals 5. That calm, it could not be ignored. Authority. What she was saying was emotive or biased. She just articulated a fact that everyone is aware of. However, a lot of people refuse to acknowledge it. When athletes of color honor their identity, it's seen as divisive. However, when they remain silent about it, they are praised for being sophisticated or focused on the game's double standard is exhausting. And Crockett made the observation that just 15 words. Now let's talk about what happened immediately as a result of this is the point at which it truly intriguing. The film started creating the rounds on the internet before to and even following the program came to an end. A few of the viewers in the studio clearly had their phones out in opposition to the rules since Twitter erupted with answers in a matter of minutes and weren't. Talking about this became explosive with a few retweets. Athletes, politicians, celebrities, regular people who don't usually make remarks about sports. Everyone was able to phone Aryna Crockett and shared it again. Kerry Washington was described as a national treasure. Representation is important because of this. LeBron James, who rarely weighs concentrated on subjects related to tennis, posted the video with fire emojis. The impact on culture was instantaneous and deep, but this is what set this specific time is different from typical videos on television that went viral. Stuff. This individual was not well known. Collapse, or a politician saying anything ridiculous. This was a knowledgeable, articulate woman, demolishing a harmful story in real time with surgery accuracy. The reasoning, it struck such a profound emotion because Crockett spoke something that millions of individuals feelings but struggle to converse. That irritation when athletes of color are advised to be grateful, humble, and quiet as their very existence isn't already revolutionary. That fatigue from observing the diminution of greatness, or questioned simply because it has connected to melanin. Crockett created that collective irritation into a single, horrible penalty that none could misinterpret or spin. The sports. The journalistic industry had a great time analyzing Crockett's comments, and the ESPN was affected by the causes behind them. Televised segments that disassembled the context of Black identity and history, athletes and politics, which are things they had talked about it before, but this time, it felt different. They couldn't just discuss it academically because of a current U.S. It had just been blasted by a representative on television across the nation. The expert said, Representative Crockett was able to reduce decades of athletics, a single phrase that blends challenges in winning. That's it. Beyond straightforward, efficient communication. That's comprehension between generations. Another person pointed out that Crockett's background as a civil rights attorney gave her a unique perspective that the majority of politicians lack. She has defended herself in court to people to whom they were directed to echo their identities. She knows firsthand observation of the weaponization your identity and how exhausting it is to continue to describe your purpose for being here. Tennis legends started making contributions as well, which raised an extra level of agreement with Crockett's claim. Billie Jean King, who has been post-playing throughout one's career, tweeted in support of sports equality. She wrote, "Support right immediately. When it's not that women of color are successful, powerful, and political. I am grateful for Representative Crockett. What are yo eyeing? That suggestion is in line with so a lot of us is important since Kingi's not renowned for adhering to trends. It became well known. When she raises her voice, it's because something genuinely, a significant event took place. Serena Williams shared the video once more with just one term, distinction, and really nothing more must be communicated. Serena has encountered this truth all of her entire career, facing difficulties, condemned and held to impossible standards expectations while possessing her achievements decreased. Crockett's thus, it was a defense to defend Coco. Of every athlete that has ever said that their identities are somehow different from their excellence. It's interesting how Coco conducts herself. Responded, or more precisely, failed to response. She abruptly stopped speaking on social media for a couple of days, which some people are said to be strategic whereas some are overworked, but sources shortly after Coco revealed says she was genuinely moved to tears while watching the video since she needed protection, consistently shown that she is able to handle criticism. However, since possessing someone with Crockett's platform and legitimacy validates her experience had a profound significance. Too often, young athletes of color are abandoned to manage these disputes independently. Congresswoman walking into the arena and state that you are not the problem in reality. The entire dynamism was altered by her view from the backstage area, though the reaction appeared to be just as powerful as the public's response. Crew members later disclosed that Crockett remained after the end of filming, which guests usually don't do. She thanked each of them by name. A production assistant took photos with anyone who asked for the man. Spoke with Whoopi for a long time. Goldberg that nobody else was aware of. However, a crew member overheard Whoopi say, or something like, "You just made history." Similar on this table, sweetie. According to reports, Crockett smiled and said, "I merely said what had to be stated." That kind of situation when humility and conviction is linked with an uncommon everywhere, even in the political sphere. To be honest, the cultural impacts of those 15 words were not limited to television. Social media. Teachers started using the video to discuss media in language and literacy were coded in classrooms. Church leaders made reference to it in sermons about justice and honesty, showed up on t-shirts, murals, and it became one of those protest signs on a regular basis where one sentence encapsulates the hope and discontent of the entire movement concurrently. Not only did Crockett defend Coco Gauff on that particular day, she validated everyone who has ever been made aware that their identity is uncomfortable, divisive, or excessive. Now let's address the inevitable backlash since, of course, there was backlash. According to several critics, Crockett's use of the race card is the most careless critique that is conceivable and shows just what she was saying, while others said that she was transforming sports into politics, as however, politics hasn't always been a component of athletics. Every time a black when an athlete is told to, it's political, so shut up, and every time a female athlete dribbles gets a tiny percentage of what male sits political. What athletes do, LGBTQ athletes experiences bias, which is political. Sports have never existed in these places. Neutral bubble, regardless of how severely some folks want to pretend otherwise. Crockett simply wouldn't do that. Fantasy. And for some, it was too much for people to deal with, thus this is what the reviewers missed. Crockett's the comment is unrelated to discord over self-reflection. "The mirror is despised," she said, in the United States because it shows what's missing. She was offering agnostic as opposed to an attack. Why the metaphor of the mirror is so effective. Mirrors don't reflect reality. Lie. In addition, the truth is because when a person like Coco Gauff achievement while remaining true to herself, totally dark, totally confident, utterly exceptional, it makes America confront its own discomfort with that combination. The problem isn't Coco, rather, it's a culture that is still unsure on how to praise black excellence without trying to control or minimize it first. Jasmine Crockett's past makes she is incredibly capable of making this disagreement. Before she was a Texas, she was a civil rights congresswoman. Attorney who defended people's rights system tried to eliminate her. She's been appear in court to defend brown consumers and African Americans who has been condemned before even spoke to each other. She has seen how identity turns into a weapon, how excellence is achieved questioned where it comes from marginalized communities. As a result, when she watches a 21-year-old tennis player receive criticism for speaking up too much regarding her identity, she doesn't see an athlete who lacks gratitude. She thinks because with single conflict she has never been involved in a courtroom prior. The causes of Hernan political defense of Coco Theater IT was the personal defense of progress. The effects of that perspective appearance has endured for extended period of time. The congressional profile of Crockett significantly increased, not since she was attempting to attract attention, but because she demonstrated moral clarity that is becoming increasingly uncommon in public life, amassed hundreds of thousands of followers on social media, was asked to give a speech at universities and conferences, and turned become an authority on racial issues, sports and culture. But she's taken caution not to let herself be completely specified at that time. Later interviews, she has made it clear that Coco needed to be protected, yet it's just a tiny part of a huge greater struggle for representation and equity across all domains. Coco Gauff, for her part, continued to do exactly what she has continuously achieved, winning games and being honest, her unwillingness to give oneself for the comfort of others. In keeping with the view, the upcoming major competition, she won and dedicated the victory to everyone who has ever heard that the message was rather clear.